Darth Maul, the Zabrak Sith apprentice used by Darth Sidious as an assassin. What comes to mind when you think of Darth Maul? Perhaps his indistinguishable red and black face tattoos, his burning orange eyes, his gritty teeth, his horns. Whatever you think of when you think of Darth Maul, perhaps one of the first things we think about is the Duel of the Fates scene in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, from 1999. The absolutely immaculate duel between Darth Maul and Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn is etched in many of our collective memories. The duel ends with Darth Maul skewering Qui-Gon Jinn, the Jedi Master, while the Jedi apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi has to be left to fight the Sith apprentice on his own. Obi-Wan Kenobi manages to finally pull a little flippy move and slice the Sith in half, seemingly killing him and dropping him down a garbage chute. But Darth Maul was cool, one of the best parts of the Phantom Menace, and fans would remember him for that. Visually striking with the classic double lightsaber and an amazing acrobatic fighting style, Darth Maul was a popular character in what should have been, perhaps, his only role. His story should have ended there, right? Down the shaft, cut in half, dead. But that is not the final fate of Darth Maul. By some twist of fate, the Sith apprentice was brought back in the Clone Wars television series from 2008. Dave Filoni's The Clone Wars show brought Darth Maul back in the later seasons of the show, giving him a fresh set of metal legs, an apprentice for himself, and a vendetta against Obi-Wan that gave him more character than he previously had. During his time in the Clone Wars show, he rallied Black Sun, the Pike Syndicate, the Mandalorians, and even riled up the Hutts. He was a wrecking ball, a wrecking force that even drew Darth Sidious in. And in the end of his appearance in the Clone Wars 2008, his last appearance is him being electrocuted by Darth Sidious. Darth Sidious felt he had to deal with Darth Maul and Darth Maul's apprentice Savage Opress, because they were stirring up quite a lot of trouble and creating a lot of unnecessary attention. Sidious comes in to deal with them, and in the ensuing battle, Sidious fillets Savage Opress, leaving a grief-stricken Darth Maul attempting to kill him. In the end, though, Sidious prevails, and we're left with Darth Maul screaming and writhing in pain as he is electrocuted. So was this his death? Perhaps at a glance we could think this is the final fate of Darth Maul. However, that was not to be, as after the Clone Wars television series, it's revealed that he was, simply, captured in the Darth Maul Son of Dathomir comic arc from Dark Horse Comics, which features Maul being broken out of prison by some of his Mandalorians and deals with the fall of the Shadow Collective that he had created. It is a wacky, twisty-turny comic that features Grievous, Mother Talzin, and Count Dooku all fighting together. But in the end, Darth Maul has to flee Dathomir and get away from Sidious, and he manages to escape his master's eyes. So then where is Darth Maul left? Well, in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, he has to have some final fate, right? And if it's not in 1999's Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, given that the Clone Wars show brings him back, and if his final fate isn't being electrocuted at the end of the Clone Wars show, and if his fate is revealed that he's escaped from the prison and escaped into the wider galaxy at the end of Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir, that means he's around after Revenge of the Sith. So, where does Darth Maul go from there? Well, we have a couple clues from the Star Wars Expanded Universe. In the Force Unleashed video game, the holodroid Proxy uses a Darth Maul training module in fighting against Starkiller. This was not actually Darth Maul, but it means that the Empire was aware of Maul and utilized his image, at least in training Starkiller, but Darth Maul is still at large. We do know that, tied into the Force Unleashed, a clone of Darth Maul was constructed using both Darth Maul's DNA and the Sith apprentice Starkiller's DNA Vader had a clone called Maul Killer constructed on Kamino, shortly after the Force Unleashed game and sometime before the Force Unleashed 2 video game. However, this clone was unstable, and Darth Vader was forced to put it down, meaning that Maul Killer never survived that long or had an impact on anything. However, this does bring up a weird question. How did the Empire have access to Darth Maul's DNA? Well, the Empire had another encounter with Maul on the planet Kalikar 6 in the comic book Tales Resurrection. The Prophets of the Dark Side, a prominent group that appeared several times within the Star Wars Expanded Universe, had supposedly managed to resurrect Darth Maul and bring him back from the dead. This brings up more questions, though. Since Darth Maul escaped Sidious, where was he? Was he finally killed by the Empire and then they resurrected him? Was this the original Maul? Was this another clone like Maul Killer? Who's to say? However, Vader did manage to kill this resurrection of Darth Maul, though it's unclear if it was the real Darth Maul, if it was a resurrection of Darth Maul, if it was a clone of Darth Maul, what exactly it was. But it's probably fair to say that the real Darth Maul was probably still at large. We also have the Old Wounds comic storyline, which is typically thought of as being non-canon. In this, Darth Maul tracks down Obi-Wan to Tatooine and is promptly killed by Uncle Owen. Now, was this Darth Maul the real Darth Maul? Because it can sort of fit within the continuity now. However, there are some contradictions with the timeline of events that interferes with the Clone Wars television series, so perhaps it's not the original Maul, but was the Darth Maul that Obi-Wan and Owen dealt with in Old Wounds another clone of Maul? Another fabrication? Another resurrection? How many clones of Maul, resurrections of Maul, or the real Maul were running around at this time? We have a confirmed sighting of some version of Maul in 2000's video game Star Wars Demolition, which is set after the Battle of Hoth. In Star Wars Demolition, the character Wade Vox goes and enters into Jabba's demolition games, and someone who appears to be Darth Maul, wielding a double lightsaber and equipped with a speeder, strikes down many opponents in these demolition games. So, which version of Maul is this? Is it the original version? Another clone running around? Which version of Maul was going around the demolition games shortly after the Battle of Hoth? Eventually, Darth Maul was resurrected yet again in another Tales short comic, where a character named Drell Kampf uses some weird technology to bring back Darth Maul by using his brain and spinal cord. And this is stated to be the original body of Darth Maul, which means that, at some point, the original body of Darth Maul that escaped in Darth Maul Son of Dathomir had to be killed. So was it the one that was killed in Resurrection? Or was that just a resurrection of the Darth Maul that got killed? So was Darth Maul killed prior to Resurrection? Anyways, the original dead body of Maul was recovered by Drell Kampf, and his brain and spinal cord were placed into a Bacta tank in his library, which he hooked up to a holographic projection that ended up fighting against Luke. This comic was called Phantom Menaces, which is probably an apt title. In the end, Skywalker manages to defeat this hologram Maul and switch it off, meaning that this could truly be his ending. However, we also have the unfinished game that was cancelled, Battle of the Sith Lords, to think about. In this, Darth Maul, or a clone of him, was supposed to wake up in the Legacy era, as well as a clone of Savage Opress, and they were supposed to team up with Darth Talon against the one Sith. Such a weird and wacky concept, and I really wish that we could have seen it. However, that brings into question another thing. People could just clone Darth Maul, it seems like. If he just comes back yet again in the Battle of the Sith Lords game in the Legacy era, is Darth Maul ever truly gone? We may never know Darth Maul's final fate, because of all these twisted concepts with clones, resurrections, manifestations, holograms, and what have you. It really is way more complicated than it needed to be. If George Lucas and Dave Filoni had just said, Maul died in the Phantom Menace, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But as it stands, He got chopped in half in the Phantom Menace, almost electrocuted to death in the Clone Wars show, shot in the back by Uncle Owen, stabbed through by Darth Vader, killed as a half-breeded clone with Starkiller by Darth Vader on Kamino, killed by Luke Skywalker as a hologram, and supposedly running around as a clone in the Legacy era. What a wacky story Darth Maul has within the Star Wars Expanded Universe. He just kept coming back again and again. I guess that his anger really did keep him alive in quite the fashion. However, I don't know if we can ascertain fully which is the final resting place, which is the final fate of Darth Maul. If we would include the Battle of the Sith Lords lore into the overall story, even though it was cancelled, that means that he's still canonically alive hundreds of years into the future from the movies, which is absolutely wild to think about. I don't know why it has to be so complicated though. Let me know in the comments which of Darth Maul's final fates you liked best. I mean, I think a lot of us would say getting sliced in half by Obi-Wan in The Phantom Menace, but that was not to be. Darth Maul kept returning in the expanded universe, again, and again, and again. But it's kind of fun, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I love the Star Wars Expanded Universe. It did out-of-the-box things. It did interesting things, and while the new canon also has Darth Maul coming back, they have a more concrete fate for him. I really like how in the expanded universe, though, these waters are kind of muddied. And it's so interesting to think about all of these different fates that could have been the final resting place of Darth Maul. I teased this video a very long time ago on my Discord server. I think I mentioned that it was coming very soon in the last Darth Maul video I made, so sorry it took so long. I just got busy with a lot of projects. But it's here now. And for those of you who didn't know, I made a video about all of the different Jedi that Darth Maul killed. So you can check that video out, it'll be linked in the description. Thank you guys for watching, and let me know, where do you think Darth Maul was buried in the EU? There's so many different explanations for where his final fate would have been. It truly is a weird and wacky expanded universe mystery.